look at the while loop. So let's get into it. So the basic difference between the for loop and while loop is, in the for loop we exactly know like how many times a loop will iterate, right? Let me show you an example of for loop first. So let's pick this one. So here, as you can see, we already know like this loop will run only 3 times. If I refresh, then this gave us 3 console logs because we have defined like uh, for this for loop to run only 3 times. Okay, but in case you encounter any situation where you don't know how many times a loop should run in order to get your output, expected output, in that case the while loop comes into picture. So let me show you an example first with the counter variable. So this is the keyword which you use to write while loop, and then we need a condition inside of it. So we'll go with this one only, sub count is smaller than 5, let's say. Then okay, so we all we need in the while loop is a condition. Okay, till this condition is true, the code will be executed. Okay, once this condition is false, this loop will stop running. That is why it is called while loop. While this condition is true, execute the code inside of the loop. Okay, so now we need a variable here outside. So let's define it. Subcount equals to 0, and then you need to write your logic, and at the end you need to update the subcount value. Otherwise this loop will run forever. If you don't update the subcount value here, then this loop will run forever because the subcount won't be updated, and it will be always 0, and it will run infinitely as we have seen already in the for loop in the previous lecture, and it will easily crash our browser. Okay, so be careful with this. So in while loop we need one condition, and then we need a counter variable in case you are working with some counter thing, and then make sure to update it at the end. Okay, now we'll write our console log again in this one. So now we'll write it with to separate it from this console log so as to reduce the confusion. Now if I refresh, then the expected thing is we will get 3 logs from this for loop and 5 logs from this while loop. Okay, let's see. Okay, so we got 5 logs from our while loop as expected. So this is one way where we have defined a counter variable, and based on counter variable we are telling the while loop to run this loop 5 times or so and so times. And as you can already see, this loop is a little versatile than this for loop because it only uses the condition. So that means instead of using this counter variable, we can pass some other condition, and till that condition is true, this loop will keep on running. So now let's see an example without the counter variable. Okay, so let's create a random number. Let random num generator. In this variable, what we will do, we'll store a random number every time. So how we can do that? With the help of math.random. Math.random. Okay. So what it will do, it will give us a random number between 0 to 1. To get a random number between 0 to 6, we use this, we multiply basically it by 6. Okay. So now we will get a number between 0 to 6. Okay, but this will give us a number in decimal. Let me show you. And we don't need this for, at least for our example. See, it gave us a random number but in decimal every time. Okay, and we don't want that. So what we will do, we will truncate it. What truncate will do, it will give us a number between 0 to 5. Okay, basically it will truncate the decimal value from it. If it is 5 point something, then it will give us 5. Okay, so this is what truncate will do. So now, since we are getting a number between 0 to 5 here, we need to add one more. Suppose we are getting 0, then we are adding 1. If we are getting 5, then we are adding 1. That means 6. So now we will get number between 1 to 6. Okay, and now we can use our while loop. So let's paste it here. So instead of this, what we can do, so now I want this loop to run only and only if the number is not equals to 6. Okay, and if we find a number which is equals to 6, then we will stop this loop immediately. Okay, attempted support while let's change it a little bit. Okay, so we will remove this one and we will comment out this, so we'll get this log only. Okay, so now what will happen, we are storing a random number between 1 to 6 in this variable. Okay, just have a close look in this. And then in this while loop, we are checking if the number is different from 6, means if the number is not 6, then only go inside of this while loop, otherwise do not go inside of this while loop. Okay, and if it is different from 6, then we are printing this console log. Okay, and we will see this in browser, but before doing that we have to again update this variable's value, otherwise we are just storing a random value once in it. Okay, and then in case we get a random number which is different than 6, we have stored in this variable, it is fine. But we are not, since we are not updating it, so this loop will run forever, right? And I don't want to show you that crashing example over and over again. It is sort of painful thing. So what we will do, we will again update the value of this variable here. Okay, so what we can do is we can write before and after in it. Before getting a 6. Okay, and you can duplicate any line by using Alt Shift down in your Windows and Option Shift down in your Mac. Okay, and Option down I have used to move the line down. Okay, and up for basically moving it up, obviously. After getting a 6, so we'll change the log here. Your loop is ending now. Okay, so what will happen? We are storing a random number in this variable, and then we are checking if the random number is different than 6, means if the random number is not equals to 6, then execute this code and then again store a random number inside of this random number generator variable, and then again log like what is a random number we are getting here, and then loop it over and over. Since we don't know in what occurrence at what point of time we will get 6, so that is why we are using this while loop. Okay, because here we totally have no idea like when we are going to get a 6. We can get it right after 2 iterations, we can get it right after 1 iteration, we can get it after 10 iterations, and we can get it at the first iteration itself. Okay, I hope you guys got the idea what I'm trying to say. In the for loop we exactly know how many times the loop should run. In while loop we use the while loop when we have no idea at all like how many times the loop will run. Okay, all we need is we just need to match the condition to execute our code inside the while loop. So let's refresh it. Okay, so now we got a 6 right after first iteration, as you can see. That is why we got two loops only. One is this one and one is this one. Okay, so the first random number we got is 4, and after updating the random number we got 6 right away. Okay, so right after first loop it stopped running, it got a 6 here, and then it never executed the code inside of this code block. Okay, so now if I refresh, again this happened. If I refresh, see, this time our log executed twice. Okay, so for the first time we got a 2 random number, then we got a 5 random number. Okay, it checked the random number is 5, that is not equals to 6. Again it executed that code, that is why here we are getting 5, which is coming from this log. Okay, and then again we have stored a random number in this random number generator, so this time we got 6. Okay, so that is why your loop is ending now, we are getting here. Okay, or to make it better, what we can do is we can add a check here. If the number is 6, then only console log this thing. So what I will do, if random number is to 6, because we are getting unnecessary console logs here before and after getting a 6c. So we only want this console log when we get a 6. Random number is 6, then only console log this thing. Okay, so now if I refresh, yeah, so right after the first iteration we got a 6 here. For the first random number we got 5, and then we got a 6 here. If I refresh again, now after 2 iterations we got 6. If I refresh again, so now after 4 iterations, for the first time we got 2, then 5, then we got 2 ones in a row, that is why it is showing 2 here. And then we got a 6. So this time we got 4 logs. If I refresh, again after one log it stopped. See, this time we got 6 7 logs, and then after these 7 random numbers we got our 6 here, and then it stopped executing the code. Okay, so the usage of while loop, as I'm keep on saying, when you have no idea how a loop should run, in that case use while loop. Okay, and if you know like how many times your loop should run, you use uh, our existing for loop. Okay, we can use while loop for the counter variables as well, but this is the way in which we use the while loop, like when we have um, some more versatile thing. Okay, when we have to deal with some other variables, some other conditions apart from the counter variables. Okay, so this is all about while loop.